Hey, yo, we're live. Mike Crawford, Young Jerks. Moment of silence right now for Enrique Delgado-Garcia and his family, especially his family. This is going to be a tough show tonight, but it's one that I'm excited to bring to you. We have attorney Mark Bero here. He's in the green room, and also retired Massachusetts State Police Todd McGhee is here. He was the person who oversaw bringing back the boxing program. He was involved in the training, especially safety training, defensive training for Massachusetts State Police. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right because I'm having a tough time with this. This is tough when you look at Enrique. Justice for Enrique tonight. That's what this is going to be about. We're going to put it in the chat. Definitely, if you want to give money to, I think people know. I haven't said too much about what this is, but I think people already know, right? This young man died at the Massachusetts State Police Academy, and we don't know why. And the press conference yesterday with the DA was really funky. And this new stuff coming out, there was just some stuff coming out about the Massachusetts State Police Academy. One of the people who were there spoke out today was Cheryl Fandaka. There's breaking news right now on this. So, but let's bring up the huge guests that we have. Let's bring them up. Mark Bero, attorney Mark Bero, and former Massachusetts State Police Todd McGhee. Welcome, gentlemen.
How are you?
Good evening, Mike.
Good. I'm a little breathless tonight. This is difficult. It's a young person losing their life like this. It just a lot of questions, a lot of anxiety about it. And I'm glad I have you guys because I feel like I'm going to feel a little better tonight just giving us this platform to talk about this. So I guess who wants to go first? So we'll start with the attorney Bero. We'll can you give a brief just what are your thoughts on this immediately on this?
I don't know how a healthy 20-something-year-old man who wants to dedicate his life to become a state trooper and is on the verge of graduation ends up dead, beaten to a pulp with broken teeth, broken bones, injuries all over his body, and you're told it's a unfortunate boxing accident at the hands of other people as some kind of training exercise. It is important to recognize the facts are not in, and there has to be a process, although that's concerning as well in light of the press conference yesterday in Worcester. But putting that aside for a moment, the facts are not in, but it feels dirty in some sense. It feels like an unlawful and unnecessary death as opposed to a tragic accident, because it's a man healthy, beaten to a pulp by presumably people who he was going to be brother police officers with, people you should trust, lay down your life for, and vice versa. And they appear to have just beaten this decent man to death for some stupid Neanderthal, what strikes me as hazing or something similar. I don't know what else. I can't fathom any other explanation for this. I doubt that this was some premeditated grudge or planned assault. I just think it's part and parcel of the Neanderthal culture that apparently has metastasized in the last few years in the state police, and it's unfortunate. You need an investigation. I guess maybe we should save the analysis about the investigation for later when we get into the press conference, if that's what you call it, yesterday, for later. But I just think that this is awful and makes no sense, and it's just another black eye for a policing organization that has had black eye after black eye after black eye And I remember sitting here even just a few weeks or a month ago with you and Todd talking about fumigating the state police. And it's 1,000 times worse just in the last month. So it's awful. And what else can you say? I mean, there's a needless death for no reason. And it strikes me as just Neanderthal culture, which real quickly you've seen permeated in other situations recently in the state police. And one may not literally have to do with the other, but you wonder if this boys will be boys, tough guy attitude fosters a culture where other troopers not involved in this, in all fairness, feel emboldened to look for nudes and, text their bosses and say, I haven't found any, and do other things that are just boys will be boys. And it appears to be a cultural disaster in that agency.
Now, we just put up the GoFundMe in our YouTube chat. It's pinned at the top. The family put this GoFundMe out to raise money, possibly for an autopsy, I hear, for an independent autopsy maybe. And also, maybe legal expenses. $28,000 has already been raised of a $30,000 goal. If you want to contribute tonight, it's right there. I'd say support the family. I think that's a very good thing to do right now. Whatever they need. I want to see it hit 30,000 tonight. I hope that goal gets reached. Todd McGhee, former Massachusetts State Police. You must have a lot to say tonight, considering.
I do. Good to be with you both this evening. Mike, for your viewers, let me provide some context, some historical context. In 1998, I was assigned to the State Police Academy in New Braintree as the Defensive Tactics Coordinator. I had started acquiring certificates for training, instructor level training, dating back to 1992. So I had my credentials. I had an interview at the academy, and my request for transfer was accepted by the commandant at the time. And at the time, in 1998, the boxing program was suspended. The reason why it was suspended was because there were no objectives. Essentially, it was kind of a sideshow type of a event, and people got hurt, not to this level, but people got hurt unnecessarily. And so the program was suspended. Part of bringing back the program was with a strong caveat that there would be built-in controls, and that the program couldn't exist by itself as a boxing program. So it lived under the defensive tactics curriculum. At the time, it was anywhere about 50 hours of training. The boxing program, part of that probably was allocated about 10 hours, not to train troopers to be boxers, but to give a recruit who had not had any type of a confrontation in their life, backyard schoolyard brawl, big brother fight, a number of recruits coming into police academies everywhere had not had some type of confrontation in their life. The mindset is to bring them into a controlled environment, give them enough training where they could be competitive against someone that was equally matched with equal skill and equal weight. The other controls that I put in place were head protection, 16-ounce gloves, mouth guard, groin protection. Again, evenly matched in weight and skill. In fact, on rare occasion, we would have a recruit that had amateur level golden gloves skill set. They weren't allowed to compete. There was no clear objective. The objective at the end of the exercise was not to raise the hand of whoever bested their opponent. It was to provide them with that wherewithal, that internal fortitude, so that they know their capabilities and limitations, and they could then make those assessments and adjustments within the course of how they would patrol out in the real world. Here's a hypothetical situation. If a state trooper, police officer is effecting arrest and they get punched in the mouth, and they reach for the firearm and they deploy the firearm, that's not justifiable force. That would be considered excessive force. And so we didn't want recruits going out into the real world, never having a confrontation, not understanding what their capabilities are, not understanding in creating a false fear or an exaggerated fear in escalating their force because they had those tools accessible to them around their waist. Another part of the controls, and this has since been changed, I spoke to the trooper that replaced me, who's also retired, but at the time, we had one round, 2 minutes in length, and that was it. There was no second fight. That was it. And again, if you had advanced training, then you would not participate. We would have a referee, someone from the boxing team that understood what to look for as a referee. We did not have a ring. We had a wrestling mat that the recruits would have the exercise on. That changed over the years, and I'm also told that ring has been removed. That ring is no longer there. So I'm, as you know, my style, I call balls and strikes. Things are not adding up for me. The injuries I'm extremely concerned about. I like other cases we've talked about, I want to see the medical examiner's report that has not been completed to date. But I think for the family, and I know Mark's going to get into this around the press conference, but along with the family seeking counsel, I also believe that they should have independent forensic pathologists. So it doesn't matter what the ME comes back with from the autopsy. There should be an independent review hired by an independent forensic pathologist to examine Enrique's body in either corroborate or call out the injuries as they see it independently and exclusively from the medical examiner's report. So tonight, I think we need to entertain some of the hard questions. Hopefully we can get to some of the people coming in on the chat. But let's roll up our sleeves and dive into this.
It's interesting that they didn't have a boxing ring. We're hearing it's a boxing match. I was thinking it was a boxing ring now, and I heard some people say that there wasn't a boxing ring online, and you're confirming that, which is just to me wild to think that people. It's almost like it's almost sets the scenario like backyard boxing type. Like I wonder if they had the headgear on. I wonder.
That's street piece. Yeah.
Yeah. Did they have mouthpieces? Did they?
You need ropes, you need padded landing, you need all of that. I mean, that's all protection in a boxing match for the boxers.
So here's what I was told just today, that if the boxing program evolved, I believe it evolved to 16 hours of independent training separate from handcuffing, pepper spray, OC spray. It's evolved to 16 hours. And if the delivery of the training looks like boxing, so if it's got feathers and it quacks, it's a duck. So they started making modifications. Also, the time of the matches has changed. It's now 2 rounds with a 1 minute timeline with a minute rest. That's also something that's different and new today than when I was in place running the program. So there has been some evolution. And the reason why those changes, that evolution took place, was to preserve the program. So this is what I'm told. I'm being transparent and sharing, kind of the latest round of information. But already there's information that's coming out that's inaccurate. So I just want to be careful as we move forward until we either hear something from an internal affairs investigation. I'd like to see a DOJ investigation, an outside agency come in on a federal level and review this incident, as well as the medical records, especially from an independent pathologist.
People are asking about there's apparently a video. Do you think that should be released as soon as possible, or at least shown to the family? I mean, has it been shown to the family? I'm
unclear of that. My understanding is that the video is now preserved as in evidence. Whoever the lead agency coming in will most likely be handed that for a chain of custody. But my understanding is that every match was videotaped, which is going to be important to compare and contrast. What was different about Enrique's match than all the other ones? So, you know, again, I have more questions than answers myself, Mike and Mark. But, you know, let's roll up our sleeves and address whatever we can.
The problem is it feels less like a boxing match and more like a blanket party. I mean, that's what the injuries suggest and the layout suggests. It doesn't compute in terms of just a classic boxing match. I mean, people get hurt boxing, that's true, but not all over their body in what sounds like just a beatdown with multiple injuries to multiple portions of their bodies. And again, I think the really disturbing part is these are brother officers. These are the people that you're going to put your life on the line for. If this is some kind of bonding exercise, then be reasonable, save someone's life. I mean, where's the humanity in this? I don't care if somebody's stronger than another person physically, you know, in terms of being a police officer or not, but where's the humanity? I mean, this man was absolutely physically beaten to death and by police officers, not intentionally perhaps, but how does it even get close to this level? Where is the humanity? Where is the brotherhood?
I mean, what do you think about that, Todd? Because it seems like there's been so many stories about this Mass State Police Academy. How many people drop out? Number one, like 50%. And just the hazing, like there've been stories about like stuff that they do to people, like stick them outside in the middle of a snowstorm in their underwear, basically squatting, like just really like the worst type of behavior, you know, hazing behavior. Like they call them drill instructors. It seems like people I would imagine they get PTSD from being at these things. Like it's that type of abuse. Like what about that? Do you think that's reality? Because we're seeing also too, apparently Enrique sent messages to a friend about this very thing, like that he was going through it. And we have someone else that was in the academy with him who just was on TV tonight saying the same thing. Like, so what about that, Todd? And how do we fix that? How do we stop that?
I can tell you in this, you can independently research this. Anyone can independently research the times that where hazing was identified at the academy. There was immediate decisions where troopers were transferred out, disciplinary actions were taking place. More recently, there was an incident with the bear crawls where some of the recruits sustained injuries to their hands on during a summer academy on the hot pavement. So again, that was something that surfaced as a hazing activity in the same thing. It was dealt with. There were disciplinary actions. So this has all of the makings of a hazing incident. Let's call it what it is. But again, until we actually see that information from the medical examiner's office, coupled with an independent review by a pathologist, I really want to see that information. To Mark's point, some of these injuries don't align with a boxing match. So I'm concerned. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm concerned. I just need more information to be able to make a better analysis on it.
The other problem is, you know, you're talking about like these bear crawls. How in the hell does that make someone a better police officer? I mean, what? So you burn your hands on hot pavement because
a little self-defense training does, but that stuff doesn't.
But I mean,
doesn't. Abuse doesn't.
And so the larger problem here on a more macro level is the culture, the overall culture of this place, and who knows about this, who allows it. I mean, how many other incidents have been dealt with privately and not even disclosed because they haven't resulted in these horrible injuries that Enrique had? Just a broken nose or lost teeth or a broken leg, and they say, suck it up. You're going to be a trooper, be a man, and, keep your mouth shut. It takes something like this to kind of blow the lid off it. But you start hearing about these other things, these bear crawls or these, what were these past incidents, these slip and slide things that
was another one. Yep. There's a lot of stories like that.
And it sounds like a culture of Neanderthal. And why? For what? As Todd said, there has to be a purpose. boxing has a purpose. I get it. You as a police officer, you could find yourself in a dangerous situation where you have to defend yourself or even take affirmative action in terms of hitting someone if you're threatened first and that kind of thing. So, I mean, ostensibly, there's a legitimate purpose in that. But the culture, when you hear about these bear crawls, you see someone like Enrique, you hear about these slip and sides. It sounds like a systemic culture of Neanderthal, and then it also goes beyond the physical stuff. And I hate to turn this into other cases that we've talked about, but I think it bears relevance to this. Is that the kind of culture that will lead scumbags like Michael Proctor to look for nudes and do things that he did and say the other inappropriate things that he did because it's just part of the boys will be boys, we're untouchable, and it's just one big party? I don't know. I mean, do they feel that they can be bold and because no one's ever going to say anything and we're the tough guys because we survived this process? You have to wonder who's watching the store here, and not to get all Richard Nixon on everyone, but what did they know and when did they know it and what's going on here? And I don't want to segue prematurely into the point of the press conference, but you saw some of this yesterday. How don't worry about the state police investigators. They're going to be fine. Well, guess what? I'd be worried. I'd be really worried. I would be terrified. And again, I don't want to jump the gun on the other things that we need to talk about before that, but this is a cultural thing with the state police. And the problem, they can't function as an organization with all these scandals. The public has no confidence in them. They already were lacking confidence because of these other cases that we've talked about. Now you have a dead recruit, which makes no sense to anyone. How are you supposed to have confidence in that organization doing anything? It's a disaster, and you're not really getting a lot of commentary, or at least what appears to be concern from the governor. Where's the colonel?
Yeah, where's the governor?
Where's the colonel? Where's the the incoming colonel? Where is the governor? Where is anyone other than the Worcester DA shaking in his boots saying, I shouldn't talk about this, but I'm going to talk about this, but, I'm not going to be involved, but don't worry about the state police. They'll be fine and see you later. This is where this family is owed answers, and it's not off to a good start.
Mark, I'm hearing that Colonel Mon, the interim colonel, is in communications with the new colonel, I think it's Jeff Noble.
Right.
There is behind the scenes conversations, but Noble does not take official position until next month.
Right.
So behind the scenes, there is dialogue behind the scenes about this specific incident.
Do you think that Bond's going to take some action here? I mean, he still has the power. Then he could move, right? Or is that going to hold it up?
Well, he could move, but you have an investigation. The movement would be an internal affairs investigation, but that's only an administrative action. The DA is going to have to also align his decision with some type of action. And he was playing a little bit of cat and mouse during the press conference, and wouldn't commit to anything. So, in one voice, the DA is saying we can't stop the investigation, but at the same time, I don't want to hand it over to the other DA offices because they have troopers also assigned. So, nothing really made sense out of that press conference.
This family is getting screwed, and the reason
already
screwed is because the colonel is a lame duck. Let's be honest. He has
that's what I'm worried about. Yeah,
and internal affairs, whatever. Look at the internal affairs with the other guys from the other cases. Good luck getting transparency on that. And then you have a DA who is basically saying, my hands are tied, I'm crippled, but we have to keep going, but I can't do it, so I'll let the state police do it. When he could have come out yesterday and said, you know what, let's put up the bat signal for the FBI right now. Please come in. Yeah. I'm conflicted. And by the way, I take him at face value with his emotion about the individual that Enrique was. I think that was real. I think his emotion about we all love this guy was totally real. But then they just fall back into don't dare doubt the state police and parading the family out there who I'm told doesn't even speak English with no translators on a 30-minute notice and putting them out there to be, in front of the cameras. That does nothing else but attempt for them to show the world they support us, they're with us. And you know what? They may be, they may not be, but they need their own advice. And
that was exploitation too. Like the family they were told this is their victim. I mean, their spokesperson on X said that they basically were told that they were going to get information, and they weren't told they were going to be on camera and brought up. They had no idea. They thought they were there to get some info, and then they felt exploited, and they felt like they got no support.
They are totally exploited. They need advocacy like yesterday. And also, you've seen this. I mean, if you do the online stuff, you've seen the vultures, right? I mean, you've seen the coffin daffers. Let's just call it what it is. You've seen her and perhaps others, soliciting, reaching out, trying to be a friend, 20 minutes after saying this was a boxing accident and a tragedy. But then that's not giving advice. That's trying to get in and get clicks and be the advocate and all of that. They're going to get exploited. Okay. They need people whose interests are solely their own, not some online half an FBI agent and others who claims to want to help, but just wants to get views, clicks, and say, look at me, I'm trying to help. And, they're getting exploited by the DA. They're getting exploited by some of these online people. And something needs to happen sooner than later, because for them right now, if you take the Worcester DA at face value, which you should, the state police are onward and they're going. Things need to be done. And the conflict in this case, the stench of the conflict is overwhelming. I mean, it doesn't mean that the investigators are corrupt, but you're asking state police investigators to exclusively look at the conduct of state police troopers and superior officers. And, I don't think it takes a law degree or a distinguished law enforcement career or a career in journalism or, a career in being a bartender to understand that the conflict here is so blatantly obvious in everyone's face. And the solution is so simple. Bring in the non-conflicted investigators. And the DA acknowledged to you correctly yesterday, I don't want a single DA in the state to do it. That's correct. But at the same time, he's saying, I trust the state police to do it. This is nonsense. This is gobbledygook, incoherent nonsense. You need to bring in outside investigators immediately, outside prosecutors immediately, and the family needs their own advocates immediately. And then, the facts will be whatever the facts are. But right now, it just feels a little dirty, the way this is playing out and the way the family is being exploited. And nobody knows what the state police are doing. Nobody knows what the DA did or is doing. Because the other thing is, the DA says, I really shouldn't talk about this, because he recognizes he has a conflict. And then what does he do? Talk about it.
Mark,
Exactly.
I'm thinking that what wasn't said by DA Early was probably high-level conversations with the Executive Office of Public Safety. That office reports to the governor, and the colonel reports to EOPS, Executive Office. So my understanding was probably, and again, speculation until we get further confirmation, but there was some high-level discussions at Executive Office of Public Safety, which direction to go. To your point, again, Mark, bringing in the outside, non-conflicted Department of Justice investigators is the only way to go.
It's the only way.
Otherwise, you're just dealing with more conflict.
And what are you going to do? You're going to bring in the Worcester County state police, like the same. We've seen this in Norfolk County. It doesn't work. Everybody knows everyone. The whole system, the whole metric that they use is so clearly flawed and full of potential. Not everyone is corrupt. That's important to recognize. But the opportunity for corruption, large and small, there's full-scale corruption, framing people, but there's also subtle corruption, bias, steering things away from other people because you don't believe that they would do it and it affects your judgment. You know, that's a subtle form of corruption. And you leave this press conference yesterday and you just feel like gross. I mean, nothing happened. These people are standing there, literally don't understand a word of what's being said, apparently. The DA is shaking. I mean, you could see his discomfort. And I'm sure some of that was emotion for Enrique. And again, I think you have to give him credit at face value for, recognizing what a good man Enrique apparently was. But to then basically say that, but it's fine, we'll trust the state police even as I step aside, which begs the next question. If you're conflicted out and the state police are going, who's watching the store? I mean, where you need a prosecutor running the investigation. And if you take the DA from Worcester yesterday at face value, he basically said the state police are on their own running this by themselves without my office supervising, and we have not yet brought in another prosecutorial agency. That is ridiculous.
You already have a flawed investigation.
It's already going down the drain. You have a family that's unrepresented. They don't know what's going on other than what they're told by the DA, which, may or may not be in their interest. It just feels like this is slipping away in the span of 3 or 4 days. And this is not good.
Todd, have you attended this academy, or you maybe didn't, because I know you were with the Metro. You were with a different
registry.
What was it?
1987, I started my career with the registry police.
That's right.
And then in 1992, the 4 state agencies combined to the new Department of State Police.
So you haven't attended the academy, I'm guessing.
As a recruit, no.
No, not as a recruit. But you've been there. How many out? Like, have you been around? You basically ran certain parts of it, right? Is that kind of my understanding on this?
I was assigned there on a temporary TDY, temporary duty status, for a 1994 class. Again, a second time as a drill instructor for a 1996 class, and then I was there full time on academy staff from 1998 to 2001, and then from there I transferred to Logan Airport after the 9/11 attacks. But I held on.
You're very familiar. You were a drill instructor.
I was a drill instructor, defensive tactics coordinator.
Did you ever hear stuff like the crazy stuff going on that, or see or hear?
There were bad apples, and you checked them. You tapped them on the shoulder and said enough. You had to self-police. You had to. People get very overly emotionally invested in the academy environment. It's a stress-induced environment by design. And recruits are trained through 3 phases. Phase 1 is what you might think: old school military style, in your face. Phase 2, there's less interaction with recruits because they've been there for a number of weeks. They know how to maneuver. They know how to get around. They're now moving in squads and platoons. And then by phase 3, they're fairly independent. So the fact that at week 20, this incident happened where someone died right before graduation is absolutely bizarre. It just the things don't line up on this situation.
Mm.
Let me speak more to the boxing program. I personally have put through 400 to 500 recruits through the boxing matches over a series of different classes as defensive tactics coordinator. The academy itself has probably put through a couple of thousand. This is a tragic incident, and not to minimize it or sound insensitive, but it's rare that this type of injury would happen. Now, again, it doesn't excuse it away. It doesn't. We're not giving anyone permission to be reckless, but we have to understand all of the elements and all of the conditions that had taken place, from the videotaping to what the controls were, to how many matches, what preceded, what was his condition prior to this match, right? Those are more questions that I have about his health and welfare.
We get quite a few questions coming through right now too. I want to let's throw this one up. Luna's mom, thank you so much for your donation tonight, Luna. She says, basically, I'm going to cut it down to right at the end because I think she gets right to the question. She says, Todd, how do we get more leaders like you on the inside making systemic changes?
I appreciate those kind words. I can tell you, I know hundreds of state troopers that go to work each and every day. They're stand-up men and women. They would never find themselves in a situation where they've compromised their integrity. So it's difficult. Like we talked about, the bad apples within the state police, it's human behavior. And unfortunately, as we do need and want systemic changes, you have the human element at play. And sometimes people, their morals and their integrity gets compromised. So that's where the accountability needs to be held. If it's the level of a suspension, a written reprimand, or termination, then it's accountability has to be had.
Another question, and I don't know if this is true, but I've heard this too going around. Is it normal for retired officers to be at the academy?
There are circumstances where a retired trooper may have a certain level of skill set, and they are on contract with the state to provide training information. But I can tell you, I've been retired since 2011. I haven't been back to the academy for any reason. And defensive tactics was my world. That was my baby. I built the program up and turned it over to someone that I handpicked to be on the team. So we treated the program with kid gloves because we wanted to be accountable, and we didn't want unnecessary scrutiny for being reckless.
Another question, Todd, did they just remove the boxing ring?
My understanding is that the boxing ring was taken out because that portion of training was too much like boxing. And that's not the objective. We're not training troopers to be boxers. So the decision was we need to scale things back before we lose it again.
What do you have an idea of when that was?
It was before this class.
So
That's
like,
my understanding was before.
So
this
maybe
class.
like a year ago, maybe, or 6
Yes.
months ago. Yeah. Okay. So clearly, because the person's saying they wanted to ask Bero, is that evidence tampering? No, I mean, it's not evidence tampering.
Taken away a year ago, a matter of policy. I mean, if the ring disappeared after this horrible,
That's what I'm saying. If it disappeared like today, that
episode of the Clean Lady TV show, yeah, you'd say that's a problem. But I mean, I think fair to the process, we don't know what happened. We all have strong concerns, but there isn't a goblin in every window, and I don't think the lack of a ring is evidence tampering. That's a different issue, perhaps for safety, but it has nothing to do with covering this up.
Yeah, no. To be clear, the ring was removed in order to preserve the program and to move away from the evolution of a boxing training. That's not the objective.
Self-defense.
Yes.
Not to create golden gloves champions.
Correct.
Yeah.
No one's hand gets raised at the end of the match.
Yeah, no competitions. I mean, that's because that's true. Like when you do any type of competition, especially among men, we get competitive, it's like that's where and adults, boxing, like I think boxing for kids, like when I was a kid, that sounds fun. But as an old man now, it's like, no. Should the aggressor and or instructors face charges? I think we don't know enough, but I mean, it could rise to that level, couldn't it, guys?
I mean, look, if you have somebody saying acting like the sensei from Karate Kid, saying, go in there, this guy's hurt, and get in there and hurt and keep going. Yes, there's no police officer exemption to an aggressive assault that is not, an act of self-defense and the that kind of thing. But again, I think it is important to caution people. You can't answer this question in black or white until you see an autopsy report. Well, we don't know what the full video shows. We don't know what the witnesses say. I mean, you do have to have a complete and thorough investigation. The problem is you have to have confidence in it, and it's got to be done by the right people. And where we stand right now, the confidence meter is already, on fumes. That's the problem.
Yeah, we haven't seen, we haven't been notified as to even who that entity is going to be.
Right.
And I will go as far to say, if there is gross negligence that is found, then there should be charges. That's just part and parcel for policing. Misconduct is one thing, but gross negligence is a part of that conversation, and there should be accountability with criminal charges.
Yeah, I agree.
A lot of people watching, a lot of people commenting, a lot of interest in this. Again, I want to make sure people know we put the family's fundraiser in the chat. So if you want to donate to them, they're close to the goal. At the start of the show is at like 28,000. They have a $30,000 goal. I would love to see them get to 30,000 tonight. So I hope people are donating there. You can see at the top of the chat. We want to talk about Coffin Daffer more. Did we mention her? We did, didn't we?
I did. I mean, look, I know we all try to be nicer and avoid some of these people, but her conduct in the last couple days, and I'm speaking solely as it relates to this matter, not the other nonsense, is so odious, so gross, and ironically so grifting, and no usual jokes that we talk about grifting. I mean, it's classic. The knee-jerk reaction was to pretend to be an expert and say this is a tragic accident, which again, all she's doing is cribbing reports, uninformed, and adding nothing, which is kind of her business model online, is just take news and restate it and shock and outrage and whatnot. And I'm here for victims or whoever. And, that's good for clicks. But she tried to couch her original tweet, I believe, as, having experience from the law enforcement side and in this kind of thing. And of course, compare that with our distinguished guest here, who actually trained people in this, knows exactly what he's talking about. I mean, the juxtaposition between the two couldn't be more obvious. This is a real expert you have on the panel here. And then you had apparently, a day later, these private Twitter messages, which were ambulance chasing. If these were lawyers, you would be saying that's ambulance chasing. That would actually be unethical. You could be sanctioned as a lawyer for contacting a grieving family who hasn't even buried their loved one, okay? Who, by the way, doesn't even speak English, which apparently she knew so much about them that she was speaking a foreign language to them, but wraps it up in, oh, I'm here to be a voice if you want it. Have you done this? Have you done that? And, you can't help but be cynical and say, why is she asking about what did they do and what
the worst thing about that is she was fishing for documents that she could, that she wanted to post. That's what she was looking for. And she wasn't looking to talk to them to give them advice. She was looking to get documents from them.
It's so gross. And, the irony here is that this private message ended up online, which I think reasonably means the family posted it, as in, go away, gross woman. Right. And then, she got attacked by a lot of people, which, is understandable. And she put on her defense of herself in one of these long ranting tweets and, blamed it on the pink people. Here we go again with all that. and explaining how she got involved in victim advocacy, and then telling us why she's a victim and what her, and never missing the chance to add as many hashtags as possible, by the way, for various victims to make sure my Twitter reach extends from this.
Did she raise any money for them? Did she post their link to the? I wonder if she posted that link.
And I
hope she did. Jennifer Coffindaffer, you better be posting their fundraiser.
I don't know. It's a cycle of crazy, and we keep saying the best thing to do with her is ignore her, and
that's what I do. That's why I don't even know what she does.
But, she just keeps coming back with these. This is as low as it gets. I mean, the thing that was sent to this family the other day, who just lost a healthy 20-something-year-old, dying to be a state trooper, on the verge of realizing his goal, beloved family member, popular guy, everybody loves him, and he's probably, beaten to death in an unlawful way. We don't know, but probably. And there she is, like a vulture, just sweeping in with purported credentials and support, and it's just, you just wanted to take a shower after looking at that. And but that's another reason why you need to have organization in this investigation. They need to have advocates that they trust to protect them, because I assure you, if these people were represented, okay, and that message was sent, then hell would have been unleashed on this ex-FBI agent doing that. And it would have been 1,000 times worse than just them reposting it and sharing for the world how gross this really was. And, you hope they recognize that. I'm sure they do. They're raising money. They're talking, it sounds like, to better people, getting advice, getting organized. But, they're vulnerable, and there are going to be more vultures who are going to keep coming. And, you just hope that they're protected from that.
I think the community is already ready to go. I mean, in one weekend, they've already raised $28,000 for him, the mom and the family.
Yeah.
And I think that more's coming tonight. And I think there's definitely a community already rallied around them. People are like ready to do whatever they need to help Enrique. But one of the questions that came up, will the state police pay for his funeral expenses? I would also ask, do they give it? I'm guessing they don't, but it would be nice if they gave him some, the family, some type of payout, like a life insurance. Is there anything that they do in a case like this, or does the family get anything?
He's technically an employee. Most people don't realize this, but the trainee is actually a rank. And once you graduate from the academy, then you're essentially promoted to trooper. So trainee is a rank. They were on payroll. So there must be guidelines for, on the job, depth in compensation to some degree. I just don't know what that is based in policy.
I hope the family is all aware of that. Let's just hope that $28,000 has been raised. I hope people continue to donate some money there. I'll be making a contribution too. So,
well, we're even with the compensation, and again, I've got to go back to what the family is going to need for resources, and whatever the state ME comes back with, medical examiner comes back with, okay, that's part and parcel for the death notification in final disposition of the body, but for a clearer, more transparent investigation, that independent pathologist, the finances hopefully that will be raised are going to be needed for that level of investigation, to have that independent research done. So it's not just about attorney's fees and even maybe burial, having finances for the funeral services. There's going to be more independent resources needed by the family that are going to cost a lot of money.
The question, Sean McDonough has been saying that the cadets are required to sign NDAs. Is that true?
I'm hearing this. I have not heard. I've never had to sign one for any part of my career. I don't know if there was a decision. Keep in mind that they're on the academy grounds Monday through Friday. They go home. So could there be exposure to the media on the weekends when they're on their own time? But I can't corroborate if this is true or not. But it's a strong rumor that's going around right now.
Well, let's talk about the fallacy of a non-disclosure agreement and what
Yes.
it means and what it doesn't.
Exactly.
You cannot silence a witness to a crime in a private contract under threat of suing for damages. That violates public policy in everywhere in the civilized world. Okay. So I don't care what they signed or what they didn't sign. When the FBI comes knocking or whoever and says, we have a serious investigation into a unnatural death that could range anything from a tragedy all the way up to, I guess, arguably, a manslaughter or worse, although that may be a little stretch based on what we know so far. I don't know. You're not hiding behind a non-disclosure agreement. The government doesn't care about your non-disclosure agreement. Okay. These women who probably sign non-disclosure agreements with Sean Combs, let's be newsworthy. Guess what? Nobody cares. You're going to tell us what happened and deal with that. So a non-disclosure agreement in this sense is absolutely unequivocally meaningless.
Mark, State Police General Counsel would have had to sign off on that, even if that was an issue. And I just don't see them giving that direction or guidance.
No.
Good feedback. Gary Singer says, saw a story that Mass State Police puts problem officers in training positions instead of firing.
Well, that makes sense.
Is there any truth to that? What do you think, Todd?
100% no. What I will tell you is that when there are problem troopers, they are reassigned to the academy for retraining. I've done that with excessive force cases where troopers have gotten themselves in some type of disciplinary action with suspension. They're reinstated, and they had to come through the academy to be retrained, not assigned there as staff.
How do you retrain somebody on that? Like, is that something that it can be corrected with retraining in a lot of cases? I imagine some people, but I imagine there's other people that just they want to be bullies. You know what I mean? Like, so I wonder, what do you think, Todd?
Well, I can tell you that the handful of times, it was more than one time that I had to retrain a trooper coming through, and their understanding of the use of force guidelines were skewed. I don't know who trained them in their career. Maybe they got bad information right from the beginning, coupled with being heavy-handed out in the road. But it eventually catches up to you, through complaints, or you put someone in the hospital because you were excessive. Whatever those reasons were, they got themselves in a jackpot, got themselves suspended, and in order, part of their reinstatement conditionally was to go through the academy and be retrained. And that was just from my firsthand experience. So on academy staff, certainly not. Assigned to the academy to be retrained, absolutely.
There have been some controversial, I know that stories like some stories about some controversial trainers, independent trainers that came around, like that were like, go all out, like be brutal, like don't take any shit, like that type of training. Are you aware of that going on, Todd?
I can tell you from the generations of defensive tactics when I was there and after, that would never happen. And the reason why is your credentials, you're putting you just can't raise your hand and start training this type of methodology. Same thing with firearms. You go through a series of training courses. You're certified as an instructor. You're certified as a instructor trainer. And then in some cases, there's people that make it a career and they leverage their on-the-job training for outside businesses. So if you compromise yourself as a cowboy in this physical training space, you're not going to get any work. Not to mention, you end up getting yourself into some type of claim for negligence. So oftentimes, if you're in a physical skill type of discipline, you're having people sign documentation that they're going to follow the guidelines and the conditions, that they're not going to showboat, they're not going to use their Krav Maga or their Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in a different training space. I mean, it's tight. The community that I was in, it was very tight, and you didn't compromise yourself with that type of nonsense. Now, I have heard patrol procedures, drug interdiction type training, where there was that sense of, in the state of New Jersey, they had a racial profiling lawsuits because they ended up throwing out the methodology that was taught by the DEA, and they pulled over people of color in rental cars. That was the only fixed profile. Did they get guns and drugs off the street? Yes. But how many people did they negatively impact that were innocent driving on the roadways through New Jersey up the interstate?
Drill instructors. You're a drill instructor. How do they train a drill instructor? What kind of training do they get about their position and like what's proper and what's not proper to do at the Mass State Police Academy?
The 6 New England State Police agencies have an organization called NESAC, New England State Police Administrators Conference. NESAC is the acronym. NESAC has a number of schools. Some of them are canine schools. Some of them are firearm schools. We ended up moving the defensive tactics certifications under the NESAC authority. That now gives credibility, almost like an accreditation body, to the discipline itself. That is also part of the drill instructor certification. So again, if you're identified as a drill instructor, in order to participate in a academy class, you have to go through the NESAC drill instructor school. I believe it's at least a 4-week, maybe a 6-week long school. So it's a commitment.
Excellent. Here's another question. This is the hypotheticals. I know people want to know the answers to these questions, but we don't always know it. But I'll ask the question: how does the investigation deal with the possibility of homicide and motive?
You're a fact finder. The investigators are fact finders. Wherever the investigation leads and takes them, then at the end of the day, that's what will determine if there was some level of negligence, gross negligence, and at that point, those will have to be held accountable.
Now, you talked about the state office of safety, public safety. I think it was that
executive office of public safety.
Yeah, executive office. That is basically the governor and them are like tied hand in hand. It's you think the governor is going to take it over with the AG, or do you think that they already know that they're saying the feds are going to look into this? Like, where do you think they're going? What's their mindset? I know you don't know, but what do you think?
So I'm 100% aligned with Mark on this. I think it needs to be a DOJ, FBI comes in, independent. We've already seen the history anyways, right, in the Karen Reed trial. So it is not uncommon for the feds to step in. So the state should step aside, let the feds come in, make it official, and again, follow the evidence. Do
you think they make that call? Does that executive office call the feds and say, hey, look, we want you to take this over? Do you think that happens or not? Or the Fed just come in?
I think the DA early was posturing and not trying to get out over his skis, but that has to be approved at high levels for that to happen. So I think that's in the works, knowing the structure of things and how things are put in place. So I would think in the near future, a decision will be made, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Boston office of the FBI is now the lead investigators.
Wow, that'd be something. I guess if you had to give advice to the family, if the family is listening right now, what would you want them to know? Like, how could you kind of give them advice? I guess I'll start with Bero.
Well, you got to get organized. You have to let them know what the next few months could entail. I mean, I think you have to have a real heart to heart in the first instance, emotionally, about finding the truth, and you know, being dedicated in that endeavor. It can be a very painful task. You know, it's going to be a rough road, and getting the truth can be very, it can be horrible. I mean, but certainly the family is going to want the truth. You need to organize your public statements. You need to weed out the people that are going to try to come in and grab a hold of you. You need to be disciplined in your communications with the DA, the state police, or whomever. You need to organize your own investigation. Again, possibly a medical examiner, a private investigator team, all kinds of people, and you need to basically do your own investigation. I mean, you can't just trust where things are right now. But I think the first thing would be to just have a heart to heart and plan out the next few months, and then just roll up your sleeves and get the family some answers. And, you know, they're going to want to be guided by the truth, not money, not dollar signs, not press conferences. I mean, all of that is potentially down the line, maybe part of this, but all they want is to know what happened to our loved one, and they're entitled to know, and they're entitled to answers, and they need someone that they can trust who's going to advocate for them to get the answers. And wherever that leads, then they'll get advice on next steps, whether that involves litigation or whatever. But what they need right now are people to advocate on their behalf to get to the truth, whatever that means and wherever it leads. And, you know, I mean, that what happened yesterday at the press conference tells you that that's exactly why you need that. I mean, you can't have them being paraded out there giving the impression of support without even knowing what they're doing. I mean, that's awful. You can't have them being contacted by, you know, random yahoos online. You can't have them issuing their own statements without knowing things. You know, to be honest, they don't want to hear things like a DA giving a press conference like he did, but saying, but there is video and there is this. They ought to be quiet. I mean, you want a real investigation, you want quiet. Believe it or not, that may be counterintuitive because everybody wants answers. But if you want to get to the truth, you don't want to put suggestive evidence out there. You don't want to influence people by releasing details, particularly from someone who's saying, I'm getting off the case, so I don't want to take too many questions, but does anyone have any questions? I mean, that's like lunacy, while they're just standing there not potentially understanding anything. So they just need advocates they can trust who are going to help them get to the truth, and whatever flows from there.
I think that they're on their way on this stuff, because I feel like they picked an advocate. They have someone, they put out a statement. You can see the organization, they got the fundraiser going. So I think for how, you know, happened on Friday, and it's now Tuesday, and I think they're actually ahead of the curve. So I think this is good. I think the family,
it's good in that sense, but the concern you would have is, you know, they start getting contacted by the state police, and you need that buffer.
Definitely. And I think they're starting to get that. And hopefully they get more support. Like, I think what you said too is very helpful in terms of it's going to be long. This is not going to be easy. You got to plan long term and
time, and it's going to be a lot of tears, a lot of heartache, because whatever the answer is, it's awful for them. I mean, it's not going to bring him back. But yeah, I mean, they're clearly have incredible support online, which is amazing. That's just the modern world, I suppose. But the problem with online is not everybody's good. And
exactly,
you know, so they really just need protection.
And I think that, again, I think they're doing okay on that. I mean, they exposed it. Let's, Todd, what you already said a couple things about the family. Like, you think they should go for the independent, I forget what you call it, but
Yeah, so, and going back to one of your in the chat, someone had mentioned a couple of different times attorney Hector Pinero from Worcester. I know Hector well. I'm working with Hector on other cases. He's the best of the best when it comes to representing individuals and families in these police-related matters. So the first thing I would do is find counsel. If it happens to be Hector, I believe that Hector would greatly represent the family in their needs. Secondly, do not do another press conference unless it's with your counsel, and separate yourself from the DA's office. There's no reason to be next to the DA's office. And I agree with Mark 100%. That was exploitation at its best, and that's not a good start for this horrific incident. That, as I mentioned earlier, the forensic pathologist having an independent study looking at the injuries on Enrique's body and making good sense of the information that the injuries are going to yield. The injuries on the body tell an unbiased story every single time. So those, along with everything that Mark had suggested, those would be my recommendations to the family.
Gary just sent a donation, said serious complaints filed against dozens of Massachusetts police instructors. Investigation finds. This is from CBS Boston tonight. Is that surprising to you?
No, I think it's part of where we're at. Mike, this is something that we hadn't talked about. You touched on it a little bit about the dropout rate. I'm wondering to see if those that dropped out, and it's closer to 60% in the dropout rate. I'm waiting to see if anyone that was a former recruit comes forward with anything.
And that's also why when they get private counsel who gets an investigator, they find out who those people are and they go affirmatively interview those people. And if it turns out that this is a horror story that happens again and again, maybe not on this hideous level of violence, but that can change things dramatically and educate what happened here. So those are all things that, when they get their team lined up, they'll do on their own. Same way you saw it like with Sandra Birchmore, same kind of thing, right? They were told something that struck a lot of people as this can't be real. They got their own team together and lo and behold, there's a murder indictment.
There you go. Maybe some instructors might talk too. You never know.
Well, I can tell you, if you could just think back, and I'll try to paint a picture that the matches were never done in a silo. They were always done with the platoon. So you're talking 50, 60 recruits watching, the matchups. Along with that, you have the medical unit. That's part of the protocols. The medical unit had to be present from the start of the match to the end of the match, and all the way through. So my point is that there were probably 60 people in the gym at minimum watching these exercises go through. So nothing was done in a vacuum. So there will be a lot of people to interview for the investigators.
Now, to the medical unit, are they like athletic trainers? Like, can they pull someone and say, like, you got a concussion, you're out? Like, do they have that kind of power, or are they kind of subservient to the drill instructors? How does that work?
No, they're not subservient. They, if anything, would have the final call and say if they had observed someone's performance was compromised due to an injury. They would also restrict someone that had a pre-existing injury from actually competing in the match. So their level of training is some are ALS level, some are BLS level EMTs. They're not doctors. There are no doctors on academy staff. But the academy staff is there full-time year-round. And when a state police class comes in, they'll expand that unit by maybe 2 or 3 additional troopers.
Have you heard of any other deaths in the past? I'm sure there have been.
There was a death out at the Agawam Academy back in the 90s. I believe the recruit's name was Shepard. The incident with Shepard was that he had pre-existing health conditions. His history was he had failed 2 previous attempts. He had failed the physical training, which for the entrance process, which included a body fat test, weight, and completing the 1.5 mile run. He finally made it through, but he was taking diuretics, and he was during the Agawam Academy, he was dehydrated and went down and didn't recover from being medically dehydrated.
Why
And
was he taking diuretics?
To cut weight and to get into the academy.
Oh, because there was like a minimum weight you had to.
Not so much the weight. He had body fat that they measure.
Oh, body fat. Okay, I see what you're saying.
As well as the
So
battery.
you had to qualify based on your physical. Yeah.
Yes. So he was trying to lose weight essentially, and he compromised his health, and then went through a training regimen, and it was too much for him.
Yeah, we used to lose weight for wrestling for the weight classes. It's kind of yeah, you got to be careful. I might have done it too much my senior year because my brother's like 3 inches taller than me.
Cutting weight is a science. That's not something that.
Yeah, you got to be careful. I think I did it just right actually, but it's maybe a little too much. But some people are really. I didn't go crazy like a lot of people do. Oh, yeah, we did the Vision Quest plastic running in the shower.
That's right.
I did it. We all did it.
I mean, 3 to 5 pounds is one thing. I mean, if you're trying to lose 30, that's you need a medical doctor.
It. I think my friend Charlie did that. He's like I think he's a police officer now. I know he is, unless he's retired. But he did that. A few of them did that. It worked for him. He got sectional champ.
You got to do what you got to do, but there's risk.
He's a smart kid too. Like he won the sectional championship basically on like the criteria, and it was like the 6 criteria, and no one knew he won the match except for him. Like the coaches didn't even know. He's like, I won at 6 criteria, and we're like they're all looking at the rule book, and he was right. Like that's so.
Knew what he was doing.
Yeah, he's a brainiac of wrestling back then. So, anyways, off topic. We were talking about boxing, and definitely you want to make sure there's not mismatches. You want to make sure people are wearing their gear. Even in high school, like in practice, some teams wouldn't make you wear the headgear, but like I was one of those coaches that's said you got to wear the headgear because I don't want to see kids with the cauliflower ear. There's other people that just. Well, I guess when you get in college, no one wears headgear, and your ears end up whacked out. But I just wonder, like that type of thing when you're doing the boxing. Was there any times where people wouldn't follow the rules with things like headgear and protective gear?
Absolutely not. It was under the direction of the program. The program had objectives. If you veered away from the objectives and someone got hurt, you just shot yourself in the foot.
Do you think that things could have changed when you're gone and your replacement is gone? Could that be the issue? Is that they're not following the protocols? They lost the protocols? Like, how do you think we get into the situation?
Yeah, I mean, I was told today, just from speaking to my friend, my former colleague who replaced me in 2008, the evolution of the protocols got even tighter. So. We just don't know. To Mark's point, we've got to wait on that investigation, and then from there we can cast judgment, because then we'll at least have something to measure against. And if it looks like the information stinks, then we can punch holes in it. Like we've done on the show for other cases. But we need at least something to land on to be able to pull it apart.
There's a comment says the training school was designed to prevent them from using excessive force, but they are using excessive force for training. Do you want to comment on that? Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, you've got an academy class of over 100 recruits. This Enrique situation, it's an anomaly. Yeah, we got to find out. There's problems here that let's call it what it is. We need to understand more of what went on, but you've got myself 500 recruits that I've gone through. You've got, the academy itself, class after class after class going through the program. People are paying attention and watching. That's not a definition of excessive force. It could be negligence, or it could be gross negligence, but not excessive force.
People are asking about when the Mass State Police instructors are removed. How come we don't hear about it?
It's an internal administrative process. If someone's terminated for wrongdoing, that makes press because that sells stories, that gets eyeballs. But if it's an administrative procedure, maybe if on a slow news day, someone might pick it up. But that's internally administrative action.
Now, Mark, you mentioned not Tupac, but Puff P. Diddy earlier. Have you been following that? You're from New York. What do you think about that case too? Because we've been following that today too.
Yeah, I mean that's my home court, and he's kind of notorious around these parts. It's not his first go around in New York. He had the famous, gun trial from Club New York in
with J-Lo.
1999, where he tried to pin it on Jennifer Lopez. Ultimately,
pinned it on his rapper friend.
Shine was his name. He didn't get
Barrows.
Jennifer Lopez never got indicted, but he went to trial. He was acquitted. That guy Shine got 10 years or so for all of that. The current indictment, they indicted his company, if you can even call it that, as essentially, under RICO, which is pretty rare. But the allegations are pretty chilling. They appear to be pretty well sourced and documented. And, this is the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Southern District of New York, or as they call themselves, the Sovereign District of New York. They don't bring charges like this lightly there. He has been detained, which is a problem for him. He's going to go to the MDC in Brooklyn, which is a notoriously hideous, wretched federal jail. You have had some federal judges in New York who have actually not given jail sentences or not set bail specifically because the MDC Brooklyn is inhumane. So for somebody who lived the lifestyle that he has lived, to be ingloriously dumped in the MDC in Brooklyn for God knows how long, that's got to be humbling. But they if you read the indictment, they recovered a lot of evidence in these searches. They clearly have witnesses. It's going to be a tough road for him. So I mean, it's early in the process. You don't know what the case is, but generally, if there's one prosecutor's office in the country that you would suggest would not indict unless they felt very confident in the evidence, it would be the SDNY. So, he's in a pretty bad place.
There were people that were close to him that for years they were saying this day was coming.
Yep. Yeah, no, there's been allegations about him for years. There were allegations that, he has his own fall guys lined up for him. I believe there were even allegations in the prior trial in New York, and not necessarily this guy Shine, but other people take ownership of the gun that ultimately was recovered in the car in that case after the shooting at what was then Club New York. I think that there's a lot of people who will be turning on him, that he had a fear factor for years, and the gig is probably up, and they're going to be emboldened, and he's going to have a tough time. He's got a very good lawyer. I know him. Good lawyer, good guy. But, that can only go so far sometimes. So we'll have to
say, like, if you having $1 billion or whatever he has, that's probably not going to help that much, you think, or will it help?
It helps, but not today. I mean, his whole life, he's thrown money at problems. I mean, that's how, and that creates the arrogance and the recklessness to do the things you do. You just throw money at every problem. And today he learned a hard lesson that, in a court of law, that it doesn't necessarily work that way. I mean, he offered a $50 million bond to just let me out of jail. Now that's a
good.
lot of money. That's
Yeah.
a lot of money. You surrender your passport, you wear a monitor, you put up that kind of money, you restrict them to the district of, which would essentially restrict them to Manhattan. And a federal magistrate said, yeah,
no.
So he learned a tough lesson today, and, we'll see. And I'm sure a lot of people are going to be lining up to want to come after him just for all the things that he's alleged to have done over all the years. So I don't think he's in a very good position, but he has a right to a defense. He has good lawyers. A lot of times in these cases involving sex trafficking and that sort of thing, they bank on the fact that the witnesses maybe aren't the strongest or are nervous, concerned, don't want to cooperate, but times are different. And that argument might have held a lot more water 15 years ago, but you've seen it. This is the same office that, put Jeffrey Epstein in jail until he apparently killed himself. You've seen it down the street at my old office with Harvey Weinstein in California with Weinstein. Times are different. And the one thing that I think ultimately may be his real downfall, because videos are always worth 1,000 words. There is a video of him just kicking the crap out of a woman in the hallway in a hotel. And I know he's trying to poo-poo that and say, well, she hit me first. Good luck with that one. That video is hideous and just wipes away any remote star, the fact that, he's a star, he's not going to get convicted. He's kind of street, he certainly was very successful, but he's going to have a rough couple of months and very likely several years.
Well deserved, I think.
He earned it.
He certainly did.
I mean, he you make choices. He lived a life the way he did. You bring in these girls everywhere you go and hire these people. And again, the answer is you just throw money for silence. That works with a press conference. It doesn't work when the FBI and the U.S. attorney come knocking. And he's, screwed. Let's call it what it is. He's in a lot of trouble. He's looking at decades in a federal prison. Decades.
I'm wondering if he'll ever get out.
I don't know. I mean, look, he still has his right to a trial. He's going to have a very vigorous defense. How does that work? Given the stuff that they found in these searches and the witnesses they have, I think it's going to be a tough road for him, but we'll have to wait and see. I mean, you just don't know how many people are going to be lining up to add what they think will make it worse for him. So and you don't know also if the feds have this awful habit of superseding indictments with more.
Exactly.
They don't think just because they did a 3 or 4 count indictment, which was pretty thin, generally speaking, for a RICO indictment, that means it's over. They're not done looking, digging, and for all you know, they superseded and add God knows however many counts, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. So
it's the same week that it's the anniversary of Tupac's death too, which is interesting.
Yeah.
And then you got the other trial going on related to that. Just
right.
Who knows?
Right.
It could be a lot of other stuff. There's other stuff too that there's been a lot of allegations against him for decades.
People have been waiting to come out of the woodwork for decades.
When he got tried the first time, I was in the Manhattan DA's office at that time. And, that was the case back in the day. And I mean, I remember the day because, they was right down the hall when, there goes Jennifer Lopez walking down the hall, going in and basically pleading with the DA to, leave me alone, that kind of thing. And they did. But the consensus was that, man, he pulled a rabbit out of a hat. And how the hell did he do that? Again, there's no evidence literally, but there was a lot of people back then who just assumed something's not right here and something untoward must have occurred, and who the hell knows. But
he seemed to have so many breaks like that. Like even from becoming like who he did at like age 20 something. Like it's like,
yeah,
how did that happen?
And I think a lot of people in from the office in that day and just in the New York legal community and others are kind of biting their lip today and trying to hide a little smile, I think. But we'll see. He gets his right to a fair trial. He's presumed innocent like everyone else, but man, he's got a hell of a task ahead of him.
It's interesting too, because I think a lot of us, we don't want to see, especially if you like hip hop, you don't want to see more hip hop guys go down. Black guys, you don't want to see it. You just don't want to see it. Like that's the elephant in the room. But on this one, I think most people are just like, we're not going to support him. Like, because there's all these black females who, and even black men. He abused his own people. Like it's just so in the artist he didn't pay. So I think I'm wondering if there's anyone going to be crazy enough to support P. Diddy at this point.
They were saying that the contracts that he had given the rights back, that was just hush money. That was another form of hush money payments to silence people. So, just like in every industry, no one wants to be next to a bad apple. In this case, he was a power broker. He called the shots because he had all the money.
That's true.
I think it's like I was just watching the thing about Roger, that movie, the docu movie it was pretty good. The Roger Ailes Fox Bimbo one. You see that movie?
Very of it. I know it.
Yeah. She basically planned to sue him while she was still employed there. The main, I forget her, Gretchen, whatever her name is. But then nobody would come forward, even though like the guy was abusing everybody there. No, because they were all, hush hush, get ahead. And then all of a sudden it just broke. And then everybody started coming out of the woodwork. And just it's interesting because I feel like that's the same thing that's going on with this one, P. Diddy. It's like now everybody's gonna come out.
And again, you're in a different time. I mean, if this happened 15 years ago, I think he'd have a lot of groupie support. But times are different. Views have changed on many levels. And the reality is, too, he's been living off his fame from years prior, right? I mean, he's kind of been pushed to the side for a number of years in terms of his credibility in that world. He's, been a fossil, if you will. But I don't think he's very well liked, and he'll have to try the best he can. But, when he got tried in what was probably 2001, if I recall, when this was happening back then. This is right before 9/11, if my brain is functioning properly. And he was a star back then.
I bet he had support back then.
Of course he. Are you kidding me?
The Chargers, yeah.
Well, his girlfriend was Jennifer Lopez.
Exactly.
Now, as much as everybody likes Jennifer Lopez in New York, she's like the daughter, the queen. Yeah. Oh, she's Jenny from the block. And
that was at her peak too. That was like when she was her.
That was at her peak of her, whatever, music, acting, and all of that.
Dancing, everything, yeah.
That stuff. And he had a ton of support back then. And you're just not going to see that now.
I was thinking about this today. I can't imagine having $1 billion and blowing it on craziness.
It's arrogant.
That's what it is. I mean, not only crazy, it's abusive. I mean, I don't want to dismiss it because it's highly abusive, but it's just like, even beyond that, it's just like, you're crazy. What are you doing, dude?
Well, you thought he was Teflon.
Yeah, you have the money, you have the ability to buy and do what you want and be the shot caller, and it breeds arrogance and a different form of corruption. Not state corruption, but you start taking reckless decisions and doing things that, he clearly was a good businessman at some point. I mean, he created this empire, but look at him now. I mean, he's living in the MDC in Brooklyn, which again, I can't express in stronger terms how hellacious the conditions are in there. And I assure you, it's coming probably in the next few weeks. There will be an application by his attorney saying the conditions in the jail in Brooklyn are so inhumane, you need to accept some kind of bail package. And I'm not saying it won't work either, but that's the playbook these days. For people who get sent to that place, it's either freezing cold or hot as hell, full of roaches, horrible food, loud. It's hideous.
People saying they liked J-Lo. This is Bailey. I like J-Lo when she was Jenny from the Block.
Everybody in New York did, in particular. No, I mean, that gave him the credibility and the support. I mean, that's her guy. If she says he's okay, he's okay.
She co-signed it.
She wouldn't go along with that. Meanwhile, she got collared for the gun too initially, and it's not like he was taking credit for it, right? Because ultimately, the position was it ain't
he
mine.
Put her in a bad position.
He put her in a bad spot. Now she got out of it, which was the right prosecutorial discretion move back then, but she had to go through it for, again, if my memory is correct, a couple of weeks of hell, and wondering, am I going to get indicted, and are they going to be seeking a prison sentence for me? So
crazy day today to see that happen.
Yeah.
To see, I just I definitely wanted to mention it. Well,
they got him good too. He had come to New York for the purpose of surrendering and believed that they were going to honor that, and they just came and snatched him up. And they don't do that unless there's a reason. I don't know.
Yeah, there was a rumor basically saying that they thought he was going to flee. That was the rumor.
Well,
that's why they snatched him up a day before, they said. That's what TMZ said, actually. TMZ reported that.
Allegedly, because, it's all alleged.
Yep.
He allegedly had drugs in his hotel.
Yeah, the pink stuff. The pink.
7th Street, just a few blocks, actually, from where my office is. But think of the arrogance. You come to New York knowing you're going to get indicted, knowing you're going to have to surrender, but you think you have an arranged surrender. So if I do it on this day, I have a couple days to do what I want. So I'll just keep the drugs in my apartment, and then they come snatch me up and find the drugs. I mean, stupid.
So final thoughts tonight, would you say? What would your final thoughts be? Attorney Bero, we'll go with you first of all.
I mean, this thing with Enrique is bad, and it smells and it feels bad, but we still don't know what happened. And I think it is important to at least not assume it's a murder. It does seem to have some indicia of a wrongful death without justification that could lead certainly to a very serious criminal investigation, but we don't know what it was. It does feel like a cultural thing in terms of the state police and the hazing and whatnot, but we'll have to wait and see. But to me, the biggest thing is they need to get a real investigator. Not real, that's not a fair word. They need to get a non-conflicted investigative team, which involves a prosecutor and an investigating agency immediately. They're not doing that yet. That's disturbing. And the family needs to get their ducks in a row, get represented, hire the people they need, whether it be their PR people, their investigative team, all of that, and make sure that they don't get exploited by either the DA, the state police, or the online vultures. And hopefully all of this will come together in the next day or two, because in the first 3 or 4 days, it feels like a cluster F. I won't say the word so you get hit, but it feels a little bit messy, and you'd like to see, because they're entitled to know what happened to their loved one and get justice for him, whatever that means. And hopefully this thing will clean itself up, because it's off to a pretty rocky start.
You know how many people I heard from this weekend, Mark, about the swearing stuff? It's so funny. A couple people came up to me. They were like, "We like your show because there's no swearing, but then you swear, Mike. So stop swearing." I'm the one who ends up swearing.
I swear. I just don't know if we swear, if it somehow gets. I don't know how YouTube.
No,
I don't want to get you hit.
Yeah, no, I think it's more about the audience. The audience doesn't want to hear it. Like some of them, anyways. Like
sometimes it's appropriate.
Turtle Boy tells them to F off and the swears anyways, which I could do, but like I think about your mom. Your mom listens to the show. Do you think she wants to hear the swear words, Mark?
No. I think
So
she would.
I try to keep it clean for Mrs. Bero.
Well, she watches a lot of these things now.
She does.
In fact, that's how I knew. To tell you the truth, I knew that the client was at the Patriots game. Of all people, my mother told me.
Your mother found out. There you go.
She's
She keeps on top of things. She is very
watched.
good. And that's the other thing. I find out like some of my older relatives watch, and I'm just like, oh man, I gotta stop swearing. But anyways, we had before I let you go, Mark, because I said final comment. I got a final comment for you. There was a judge. I guess she's a Massachusetts retired. I think she's retired land judge, apparently, or not a land judge. No, she's I think a family court judge.
It's okay, that I know. Okay.
And she said she was talking about the appeal for Karen Reed, this SJC.
Mhm.
And one of these so-called online experts who's against Karen Reed got very upset by this judge. And she basically said, maybe so I could never predict the SJC or an appeals court with any case I argued as a lawyer or decided as a judge. If it does go to the full bench, whatever they decide, I think they will provide guidance about Rule 27B verdict and recommend polling by judges be mandatory. Isn't that kind of exactly what you said on the show? Like,
yeah, it is. But I also think that any educated lawyer who understands appellate practice would share that view. And I don't know who the judge was arguing with, but clearly not a lawyer, because the American system is one based on precedent and case law and interpreting prior cases and statutes in the Constitution. But it's primarily the law evolves and moves through precedent by courts. And you're dealing with this Karen Reed SJC thing, a case of first impression. It seems profoundly unfair. I mean, it seems obvious at this point that there was an acquittal on a couple of these counts factually. For some reason, that verdict wasn't published. Nobody from the DA's office or the court apparently wants to hear this. The judge did not poll the jury. I thought the defense made a great argument about the waiver and what they didn't get a chance to speak. You get all these things, and you say to yourself, so when it goes to appeal at the highest court of the state, this is a golden opportunity for the high court to say, this is how it will be from now on. That's what the highest court of a state is supposed to do. And why wouldn't you say, for the love of God, if a jury has multiple counts and has lesser included offenses, and this is all convoluted nonsense, and they come back and say, we can't reach a verdict, why not make a judge say, is that across the board, or do we have anything? It's not complicated. And the price of doing business here should not be, well, because the jury did not communicate it effectively because they may have misunderstood it or not, whatever the reason is. Well, the answer clearly should be then, well, let's try an acquitted woman for murder again. I mean, I'm being facetious, obviously. Yeah. That's absurd. Yeah. So, yes, I think this is a golden opportunity for the high court to drop the hammer and say, we need to clean this up. This should never happen again. The fact that we're literally discussing whether a woman should be tried twice for murder when the jury is jumping up and down saying we acquitted her. I don't know why we didn't publish it, but we acquitted her. This is lunacy. This should never happen.
It was great to see that. See the person that isn't an attorney arguing with the judge. It basically,
who is it? Or are we not supposed to
I'm
ask?
not going to say. At the Carol Erskine is the judge, actually, that was commenting. And she was saying all the same stuff you've been saying, Mark. It feels really good to see that this isn't just pie in the sky. The legal experts know what's going on here.
No, I mean, we're just calling balls and strikes on what's going on. And I think anyone who's fair to the analysis and process, whether you like Karen Reed, hate her, or somewhere in the middle, if the jury's saying we acquitted, if you're American, you say that's it. And the problem in this situation is we're not getting the real answer. There's two questions that the court ought to know. Did you really acquit her? I mean, you ought to hear 12 jurors say yes, so you're satisfied. And then it begs the real question, which is, well, then why the hell didn't you publish the verdict? Which is what you're supposed to do. And wouldn't it be better for all involved to know the answer to that question? And maybe the answer is satisfactory and you ought to find her not guilty. Or maybe the answer is not satisfactory. But either way, why are we beating around the bush? Let's get to it. And you can't try someone with this lack of a record for murder twice. This is crazy. This is still America, and you shouldn't be doing that. And of all places, Massachusetts, the cradle of liberty, is going to be potentially retrying an acquitted woman for murder if the DA chooses to do that. It's a terrible look.
And we hear your one of your dogs, one of the two. Is that Lola?
Having one hell of a dog dream down there. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. The legs are moving.
Something. She got excited about something.
Mine's sleeping in the other room.
She's like, "You go, you go."
Sleeping.
Knocked out cold. Ready for bedtime.
I know my dog's gonna be crying in a minute to go out one more time. So before we have to go take out dogs and go to bed and all that, what are your final thoughts tonight, Mark? I already asked Mark. Sorry. Todd. I'm laughing now. This has been a tough show, and now I'm at the final spot, and I'm having a little comedy on myself.
Yeah, no, this is heavy stuff, Mike, for sure. But again, just to piggyback on what Mark said, family to get legal representation. If you're going to do a press conference, don't do it with the DA's office. They have other objectives that are not in line with the family's objectives. Forensic pathologist, if you at least one, maybe two, to have additional corroboration or identify discrepancies from medical examiner's report. Hopefully we won't see that. But again, as due diligence would require itself, it's best to have some type of independent medical examination. And then, from there, we'll see how things shake out. Hopefully we can get an understanding about who the lead investigators will be. Let the state step aside, let the feds step in, and from there, follow the facts.
Excellent. I want to thank you both for being here. Attorney Mark Bero, you can follow him at Bero Law on Twitter and X. He's also got his website, BeroLaw.com. Todd, how can people follow you? I know I follow you on Facebook and LinkedIn.
LinkedIn's the best one.
LinkedIn, okay.
Yes.
And
LinkedIn.
you also have your contracting business. You want to tell people or give a quick plug on what you do if anyone's looking to hire you for services?
I do business to business work right now for Massachusetts-based nonprofits and for-profits. I have a de-escalation course and an active shooter course for businesses, and they can apply for a grant through the Commonwealth Express grant program and get 100% reimbursement by taking this course.
And is that for like police officers or like police departments or all kinds of workers? What kind of workers is that for?
Civilian frontline employees, nonprofits, long as you're not funded by the government. So private institutions, nonprofits, for-profit private businesses, they would be able to qualify through the Commonwealth and get 100% reimbursement for taking the de-escalation course or the active shooter course.
Excellent. That's amazing. I bet you have a lot. I mean, the active shooter thing is like a new. We didn't have that. I mean, back when we were kids, right? It was hide under the desk because the bomb might come down, right? I mean, that was it,
Bomb
right?
threats,
Like know
right?
where the emergency exit is, but
Bomb threats and fire. It's all
Yeah.
changed.
different world. Well, I want to thank you guys again for being here tonight. This is heavy stuff, and I feel like you helped us because people are fired up about this for a good reason. And I hope the family got to listen and get some support on this too. And I really appreciate you being here, especially telling us from a legal angle and also about what's going on with the Mass State Police in terms of training. It's very informative. Thank you guys so much for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
We're the Young Jerks. I want to thank Attorney Mark Bero and Todd again for being here. That was huge. Todd McGhee, again, he's retired state police. I really appreciate those guys being here tonight. Todd shared a lot of information. I think that was very helpful I hope to the family too. And also the audience, because I think that they need to know kind of the process and what we're actually looking at and what we don't know. Because there's a lot of speculation, there's a lot of reporting. And I'm not going to doubt any of the reporting. Sean McDonough puts out a lot of stuff that I think is factual stuff he's already said tonight. We confirmed it tonight. So I think this was very helpful tonight. I did reach out to Sean. I was trying to get Sean on the show tonight, but unfortunately it didn't work out. I kind of do things last minute, and I know Sean, everybody wants Sean on their show right now. So maybe another time. I want to thank everyone who's been watching and donating and subscribing. We definitely are going to be doing some membership. I've been promising that, a membership show eventually. And I want to thank we got some Venmo money tonight. Barbara sent $60. She said, "Thank you, Mike, for the many hours of education." Thank you so much, Barbara. That was very supportive. Thank you so much. Tracy sent $10 on Thursday. She said, "Love from my whole to Mark Bero. She's still disgusted with the jurors." Thank you so much, Tracy. And also on Thursday, I don't think I read this one. Susan sent $5. Thank you so much, Susan. Yeah, we had some late ones come in. Cynthia sent $5 the other night. And I think we did read your question as well from the chat. Alex sent $5 the other night too. She she asked for the idiot in the attic. We did read that one. Perfect. All right, so I got those out of the way. Thank you so much. I think those are Cash Apps, actually. Those were Cash Apps. Let's check out Venmo. All right, Mary sent $10 on Venmo. She said she's so grateful. I'm so grateful to you, Mike. Thank you so much, Mary. I'm very grateful to you for sending $10. Thank you so much. And sending me a message. I really like the messages too. Dina sent $1. She said, "Levy, help us." I hope so. Let's hope Levy hears your call, Dina. Thank you so much. Catherine sent $4.99 from YouTube. And I'm wondering if that's the Catherine I know from radio. I don't know. That might be I'm not gonna say. It could be a sports radio personality. I hope so. That'd be kind of cool. Former sports radio. Let's put it that way. Casey actually that was someone else. I'm reading the friend thing. Okay, that's it. That's Catherine, Dina, and Mary on Venmo. Thank you so much for donating tonight. Were people being rude telling me how to run my show tonight? Who was doing that? I didn't see it. Thank you, MJ, for holding it down. I want to thank my moderators always. Thank you so much for supporting us. And thank you for dealing with the chat and keeping track of things. I would like to know what they were complaining about tonight. I don't think there was really much to complain about tonight. Yeah, I'm just going back and see. I don't see any negative comments. I see a lot of justice for Enrique, that's what we want to see. I guess we're at 29,870 right now. Wow. We want to get to 30,000. Let's try to get to 30,000 tonight before the show's over. It's funny because I scroll through all the comments. I'm trying to look for the negative comments and I don't see them because there's so many comments. So it's okay. Oh, looks like we just crossed 30,000. That was my goal tonight. Thank you so much, everybody. Total in the fund is 30,170. Yeah, thanks, Mike. That's Glamasseuse. Thank you so much, Glamasseuse, for the update. I think I didn't post this one. Dewey said, please never let me see a day that Marv Bero says she got a hell of a task in front of her. I don't know what that one's about, but thank you so much for the comment and the donation. Mary, thank you for the donation tonight. Thank you, Angel. Thank you, Reality Check. Thank you, Gary and Phoebe Bird. We had so many of them tonight. Romy, VDOT. Thank you, Sassy. Thank you, Mr. Marks Understudy. Thank you, I See You. Thank you, Gary again. Thank you, Glamour Suze again. Thank you, MG. Thank you, Classic Overthinker. Thank you, AK the Cat Lady. Thank you, Siegebot. Thank you, Justice. Thank you, Thomas Autonomous Anonymous. I love that one. He's back. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Marks Understudy. Mr. Meat Hook. Thank you. And Reality Check again. Baby Fishes. Carolyn. I think I got most of you up. Thank you, Lulu's mom. Thank you, Luna's mom. Thank you so much. Bridget as well tonight. Terry. See how many of these again? It's hard to go through them all. It's hard to keep track of everything on this show, folks. You guys are so generous. I want to thank everybody who has become a member, like Kim and Cynthia and Sarah, who's been a member for a while, and Richie tonight. Richie's the man. Thank you, Richie, so much. Keep your head up, man, no matter what comes down the pike at you on this crap. Marcy, thank you. All right, I think I'm out of here. I'm gonna check the chat real quick, see if I've missed or screwed up anything on the way out here. Yeah, see you, jerks in Bero. Is Turtle Boy on today? I hope he is. I'm gonna go check it out. There was some comments going after Todd. You know what? I think Todd did a great job tonight. He gave us a lot of insight. Of course, people are going to think he has a bias, and he probably does because he works around these people. But considering that, he offers a lot of information and confirmed things that you're not going to hear anywhere else. So I'm very thankful for him. And he's a good guy. And he's not adversarial. And I think he's careful with his words, but he did say some stuff tonight. I mean, you got to give it to him. I think he did a great job. I'm very thankful for Todd, and I think he did a great job tonight. And he said the most important things. Who else is a retired Mass State Police who's going to come on this show and say, you know what, the family needs to do an independent, needs to hire someone to do an independent autopsy? I don't know anyone else who's going to say that. So I commend Todd. I think he did a great job tonight. And I want to thank our moderators again. I want to thank MJ, Stephanie. I want to thank, who else am I missing? MJ, Stephanie, McGhee. Oh my God, I'm forgetting names tonight. So funny. I want to thank Scott. I'm not sure if he was in the chat. I didn't see him, but there were so many comments tonight. I couldn't keep track of them. I was trying to keep track of the show too. It's a lot to keep up on. So, but I do want to thank all our moderators that are always there. Scott, MJ, Stephanie, Jen, and Miss Shorty. I hope I'm not missing anyone. No. I should just say I want to thank our mods. They kick ass. I am having trouble tonight. It's so funny. I don't know what it is. I think I just got too much on my mind. And you know what? This is stressful. I got to admit, when you do a story like this and you look at this Enrique, looks like a beautiful young man. I can't imagine if that was our family member. He looks like a kid that was book smart. He looks like he was a kid that was thoughtful. I could tell. You could just tell. And he had his whole life in front of him, his whole future taken away. So, and to see that family and to see them interviewed and see their comments and to know what they're going through right now. This is hard. And it kind of reminds me of when we were covering the Lorna McMurray case. That was another very difficult case to cover because this is someone's family member who should be there with them. And it's a young person, just going to their peak years, right? Your early 20s should be the best time of your life where you're discovering yourself and setting a mark and having achievements in career and personal life and all that good stuff, right? And it just got taken away from this family. So if I'm off today, that's why. Is that Tanya there? She said he is our son. I mean, I feel like he's all of our son now, right? Could be any of our kids. A poor family. So I'm really happy that this community, there's a big community who's gathered around and they're supporting and they're fundraising and raised over $30,000 in like 1 or 2 days. It was unbelievable. So it's not easy to gear up for this. We're going to do another show on Thursday night about this. I'm also going to be covering the P. Diddy stuff more. So Thursday night, we got a live show. Beauty. Boo. I always have trouble on this name. Boozy Beauty is going to be on the show. Boozy Beauty. I was going to call her Booze for now. Booze is showing up on Thursday night at 7 p.m. She's got a TikTok channel and she's on Twitter. She's phenomenal. She's got a lot of information. She's going to talk about this case, about what's going on with Enrique, and also obviously Karen Reed as well. She covers it all. So she's going to be here, as well as Lauren Conlon. She's going to be back too. So we're going to talk about P. Diddy as well. So live show on Thursday night. We're going to have some great guests. You know what I do. I always like tonight. I try to under promise, over deliver. Tonight, I just promised you. What did I promise you? I promised you Todd McGhee. I gave you not only Todd McGhee, I gave you Bero too. That's what we try to do here. I want to thank you so much, Scott McGinnis. He's in the chat. Thank you, Scott. He's one of our moderators as well. Thank you, everybody. As the longer I stay here, the more super chats come in and Venmos. Thank you, Tanya. I should really go. There's another Venmo that came in, though. So I'm going to read the Venmo. All right. Maureen sent $25. She said, great show, guys. And she had the Irish clover there. Thank you so much, Maureen. Very, very thankful for that. All right. I do have to go. I'm going to go walk my dog, say hi to my family. Thank you so much, everyone. We'll see you definitely on Thursday night at 7 p.m. We'll be back live show. We'll see you this. Remember, justice for Enrique. That's what this is about tonight. And again, we're covering these cases. Free Turtle Boy, justice for Enrique, free Karen Reed, and justice for Sandra Birchmore, justice for John O'Keefe. That's what we're going to be covering here. And justice for all the victims of P. Diddy, Sean Combs. We'll see everyone Thursday night, 7 p.m. Mike Crawford, check it out. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great night. Be safe. We'll see you soon.